it's easy to find yourself in a place of saying, I can't go to school. I can't get the job I want. I can't move forward in my life because of the military. It's really easy to go there. It's more challenging, but also more rewarding to sit in that and say, I am being given a beautiful gift right now. And that gift is that I am given the opportunity for however long I'm at this base, 2 years, 1 year, 3 year, 4 year, whatever it is, to focus on something else. And so while that particular degree that you may have wanted to achieve may not be attainable during that particular assignment, that doesn't mean that you can't focus on yourself, self growth, development, build relationships, strengthen marriage, communication, find a new hobby, focus on you, because we know in life we get very few opportunities to say, I'm in a season to just focus on myself.
Welcome to More Than a Milspouse, the podcast for military spouses who want to live with more meaning and less overwhelm. I'm your host, Christine, seasoned military spouse, mom of 3, life coach, and your guide to intentionally designing a life you're excited about as a military spouse. I'm here to help you get the clarity you need so you can get unstuck and unlock your purpose and potential. Because you, my friend, are more than a milspouse. You have something valuable to offer. And when you pursue the things that light your heart on fire, you trade frustration for fulfillment and isolation for a life of impact. It's time to discover who you are meant to be, because together we can change the world. Goodness, guys, this is it. The last installment of our Milspouse Transformation Series, or at least the last topic-focused episode. For the last 10 episodes, we've been unpacking the 10 areas of the growth wheel based on my Milspouse Transformation Life Assessment. We've talked about the importance of rest. We've talked about wellness as a military spouse. We've talked about nutrition. We've talked about our spiritual health and resiliency. We've talked about our home environment, our relationships with our spouse, our kids, our friends. We've talked about our finances. And today we're really getting to the heart of why all of this matters. The last piece of the wheel is our purpose. Because in order to pursue purpose, we need to be taking care of ourselves. We need to be building healthy relationships. But we can carve out all the time in the world for ourselves. We can spend time building healthy relationships, but life is still going to feel off. It's still going to feel like something is missing. We're still not going to have a fulfilling life if life doesn't have a sense of meaning and purpose. We need something beyond ourselves to truly be happy and fulfilled. And so we're going to unpack this idea today. And I could not think of a better guest to have this conversation with than Brittany Boccher. You may have seen her name if you are on the USO email list. Brittany is the creator of the Discovering Your Spark program for military spouses. She describes herself as a recovering perfectionist turned self-growthist, which is something I can 1,000% relate to. She is a wife and mom to 2 kiddos and was named the 2017 Armed Forces Insurance Military Spouse of the Year. And she used that platform to help military spouses because she saw this need for military spouses that struggled to define their identity and purpose. And that's exactly what we are going to dive into today. So buckle up for a really great conversation. All right, friends, my guest today is Brittany Boccher. I had the opportunity to meet Brittany in person for the first time last year. And the first thing I noticed about Brittany is that she is genuinely interested in people and in hearing their stories. And I'm excited for you to get to know Brittany a little bit today. So Brittany, welcome to the show. Would you just share a little bit about yourself and your beautiful family.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me on. And it was a pleasure to get to meet you finally in person last year. I really have said, probably for the last like 10 years, that um, I find myself in this place of being a community connector. Like that's really when it comes down to it. I may not have all the right answers, and I may not be the final person to help with whatever someone needs help with, but I feel like I can help connect that person with where they need to go and be next. The next person to help them on their journey. And so that's really kind of been my focus the last 10 years, and then it became even more like prevalent to me in the last 5 years. But I've been a military spouse 18 years. I met my husband in an airport, and like every military fashion, 6 months later we were married in a courthouse, and he was deploying, and here we are, we're still here and we're still making it. So I feel like the way we met and that story is not unfamiliar to our community, and that's kind of, I think, more common in our community is meeting quickly, getting married, and courthouse weddings, and then having your wedding later. And so we did that, and we started this crazy military life together. And it has been absolutely beautiful, and it has been chaos, and it has been challenging. But at the end of the day, I wouldn't change any of it. It's really made us who we are today, and our family, the people we've met. And it's just been a beautiful journey, really. We have two beautiful children. So I have a 10-year-old and or now 11-year-old and a 9-year-old. And through those two kiddos, I now get to experience the Exceptional Family Member Program, and having children with unique and abilities. And so I have a son with Down syndrome, and he's also dual diagnosed with autism. So I've just had the experience to be able to really explore different scenarios in our military journey. And then also, to top that off, I'm a caregiver for my spouse. And caregiver, I put quotes around it because it looks different to a lot of people. And I think the idea, when you hear caregiver, you think that that person cannot take care of themselves, and that's not it. I think majority of the people that listen to this and that are military spouses, whether you realize it or not, you're a caregiver. Um, you're handling your household. You're taking on the roles and responsibility of your spouse when they leave, when they deploy, when they're on service. You're caregiving for your children. So there's so many different capacities. My husband was injured. He is, thankfully come through recovery very well. But there are still things that I caregive for. And sometimes that's giving him the rest that he needs for light and sound sensitivity, and him being overwhelmed, and him needing that rest. And I pick up the household and the children and manage that. So that's what caregiving looks like, not just a medication thing or activities of daily living. So that's really gets us to today. I mean, that's been life in a nutshell for 18 years. And it's been beautiful.
So I would love to know, you are where you are today, but when you think back to yourself as that new military spouse, what was that introduction into the military lifestyle like? And what did it take to evolve into the perspective that you have today?
Absolutely. I did not have this perspective 18 years ago. I can tell you that. When I walked onto the first military base that we were at together, um, I quite literally to myself just thought, like, what did I get myself into? Like, I do not know what this is about. I struggled with leaving family, friends, and really more so than that, it was leaving the comfort of the known to go to an unknown. And even though I had my spouse there, I had to be comfortable with also being by myself, because we know that yes, you have your spouse there, but they're called on a TDY. Their work shift may be to where you barely see them awake. They're called to a remote or a deployment, and you find yourself in this new location where you don't know anyone. You do not have a community yet. You may not have a job or a career. You may have children. Like there's so many variables in there. And I found myself in that to where I had got to this new place and I just was like, I don't even know how to fit in here. I would say the first 8 years of military life, I look back now in regret because I realized those 8 years, I made them more challenging than they needed to be. I did not see the opportunity that was in front of me those 8 years. I saw everything I couldn't do, everything I was missing, um, you know, goals that I wanted that I couldn't achieve. I saw how military life limited me those 8 years. I did not see how military life afforded me opportunities in those 8 years. And so that's when I look back and I'm being very honest and transparent. That shift took place though. I would say, goodness, a good 8 to 10 years into that. Like at the 8 year mark, I started finding myself more willing to participate in activities, to get engaged, to really embrace where we landed. And so I no longer had the mentality or the mindset of, the military, I can't do this because of the military. I started looking at it as what can I do because of the military? Like, what can I do here? And so that shift took place. I believe we were based in California at the time when that happened. And I just started getting engaged in things. Like as a military spouse of, 10 years at that point, I found myself going on the new base tour to tour the base on a bus, as if I was a brand new military spouse. And I did that because I was like, why not? Like, why not go do this and see where everything is on this base and see what opportunities there are and who can I engage with and how can I connect instead of trying to figure it out on my own. Like that had been it. I
Mm.
was figuring it out on my own. I was like, I don't have to do that anymore. And so it took a lot of self reflection. It took becoming part of the Armed Forces Insurance Military Spouse of the Year program to meet fellow military spouses and to really see that I could flip the script. And it wasn't just me that was living that way, it was common among the military spouse community. And I realized I could flip the script. And then I realized I could help other military spouses flip the script. And so that's really what propelled me on a mission of encouraging military spouses to discover what they love, why they loved it, what they want to do, why they want to do it, and to not look at the military as preventing them from doing it, but to figure out a way to make it happen and to live with more purpose. Because I can
Mm.
never go back and get those 8 to 10 years.
Well, and I think it's really important that you share that because there's this idea of, well, those are the people that have it figured out, that they were the ones that were always connected. And to be able to be honest and vulnerable and say, that's not where I started out. That's not the mindset that I had, or that honestly, most people I know had coming into military life and realizing this life is going to look different than the way we thought it was going to. Life is not going to work out the way, whatever it looked like in our heads, it's going to be different. And we're not going to be able to do some of the things the way we want to do it. And so what do you do with that information? What do you do with those feelings? And to say, I spent 8 years railing against this, not wanting this, and eventually got to that place to say, I don't have to stay there. I don't have to be in this stuck place if I will put myself out there, if I will try to stop figuring it all out on my own, trying to do it on my own, saying, I can do this by myself because we weren't made to do life alone, and to say, look how much is out there.
Yeah. It's one of those things like everyone has like goals and aspirations and things that you want to achieve. And it's normal to get into a mindset of where you're like, I'll use an example, go into school. And so maybe you're based in an area where you're in like a more remote area and you're like, there's literally no college that I could attend for the studying that I want to do. Like I need to do it in residence. This is not a online school. And so it's easy to find yourself in a place of saying, I mean, I can't go to school. I can't get the job I want. I can't move forward in my life because of the military. It's really easy to go there. It's more challenging, but also more rewarding to sit in that and say, I am being given a beautiful gift right now. And that gift is that I am given the opportunity for however long I'm at this base 2 years, 1 year, 3 year, 4 year, whatever it is, to focus on something else. What is the world telling me I need to focus on right now? And so while that particular degree that you may have wanted to achieve may not be attainable during that particular assignment, that doesn't mean that you can't focus on yourself, self growth, development, build relationships, strengthen marriage, communication, find a new hobby, focus on you, because we know in life we get very few opportunities to say, I'm in a season to just focus on myself. I'm in a season where I don't need to work right now. Like when you cross over into the civilian side, which we are now as a retired family, you don't get those seasons of opportunity the way you do on active duty. And so I realize now during those 8 years, I missed so many opportunities to say, I'm going to explore this new place and I'm going to explore 500 miles around this new place, drivable distance of, of locations that I may not ever see again because I may not find myself in this area of the country again, or I'm going to, put myself out there and build relationships and learn a new skill and explore. I look back and you know, now it's that whole thing. Like, I wish I knew then what I know now. I missed so many opportunities.
I love the concept of seasons, and to be able to look at each place that we go as a season, and to look at, in my life, having 3 young kids back to back to back was a season where I felt very limited in what I could go out and do and explore. But that was a season. And with each place that we go, it's a season. I'm in this season right now of I'm leaving Hawaii and there's all these things that I want to see. And I want to take the time to be able to do that because, who knows if I'll ever get to come back here or not. And to say,
Exactly.
okay, this is a season and what do I want to do? What do I want to prioritize for this season? What's possible for this season?
100%. I mean, it's a mindset shift. That's really what it comes down to. And and I think it's kind of hard. I don't think there's that many people in our community or organizations that are really promoting that. We have a lot of things being offered to us, and we have a lot of things. You want to get this job, you want this resume building, you want to attend, this um, session for your LinkedIn profile. All of these things, but that's great. And we need those resources. But I think we also simply need to hear from the community. It's okay for you to do something different this season. It's okay for you to change your focus and your priority. Does not mean that you are negating your goals. It does not mean that you're no longer working towards your dreams. It's taking where you're at, it's seeing the opportunities around you, and it's really capturing those and saying there's still time. There's still the next place for me to work towards something else. And, or there's the opportunity for you to sit in that season and say, what I have been pushing myself towards for so long, is that truly what I want?
Mm-hmm.
Why do I really want it? How could it look different than I thought?
Mm-hmm.
And embrace that. Because society tells us opposite, right?
Right.
It's like a go, do more, be more, offer more, all the things.
And we
But
can
why
wind
not sit?
up in a place where we get all those things that we thought everyone has told us that we want and realize that's not actually what we actually wanted at all.
No, you could find yourself in a spot of being overwhelmed,
Mm-hmm.
of your plate being too full, of your health not being well, of your relationship with the people you love the most being in poor condition. And you could look around and be like, but I was working so hard towards what I wanted or what I thought I wanted. And, there's a lot in just sitting in the moment, reflecting on and asking yourself the hard questions, and really being able to look at it and say, what do I really want and why do I want it? And what's the opportunity for me to achieve right now? Because you can try to fight the military life as much as you want, but here's the reality. Wherever that assignment is, that's where you're going to be
Mm-hmm.
until the next one comes. That's where you're going to be. And whether we can ask a million times, why are we here? Why did we get sent here? Why did we get sent here? We'll never know that answer. But I can promise you there's a reason. And it may be a forced reason. It may be, and I've had to go back and do this for myself because I'm a person, I'm a strategy person, I'm a achiever, I'm a like got to get it done kind of person. And sometimes I think the universe will force us into things because they know we won't do it on our own.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe this is a season that you need to focus on you. And if you wouldn't be in this position to where the other opportunities that you're striving for weren't available, you wouldn't do it. You wouldn't stop and pause. So we just have to be more mindful.
Absolutely. And there's so much power on being able to focus on ourselves and how we can grow regardless of where we're stationed. So I would love for you to just kind of share a little bit after you got to this place where you were like, I'm going to shift my perspective, my mindset, I'm going to flip the script. How did that land you and lead you to the MSOI program? And how did you go from there to saying, this is how I can best help other spouses flip the script?
100%. So 2016, I found myself at my base and I was extremely active. I had finally got to the point to where um, in my journey to where I knew that full-time employment, as much as that's what I had been working towards and what my degrees were there. I mean, undergrad, bachelor, master's degree, like all the education. I finally got to a point to where I said, why? Like why is this like this pinnacle thing? Like I need to achieve this full-time employment, and not just full-time employment. It was like in a leadership executive role because I had put in so much of the education and into it. And I was going through that process, and I had two small children, and I realized, do I want the 40-hour a week, non-flexible, non-remote, in the car driving to and from work, an hour and a half combined every day? Do I want to miss school programs? Do I want someone else taking care of my sick child? Like I started running through all the things. And I got to a point to where I was like, that's being present for those things are more important than the full-time job. And then I started looking at employment in a whole nother way of like, do I need the income of a full-time job or do I need a certain amount of income. Like, what are we trying to do? What's our goal as the family? And I just started really thinking about all of that. And so in 2016, I got to a point where I was like, I'm only going to work part time. That's it. I could find meaningful work utilizing my skills and still providing me all the flexibility and opportunity that I wanted with my kids and my family. And so I would use my brain. I would fulfill that part, of contributing to an organization. And then I decided to volunteer. And so I started volunteering a lot. I was Spouses Club president. I was a Booster Club president. I um, started a nonprofit. So I was very much utilizing my talents and abilities, but not for pay in a lot of ways. And there's a lot of power in that. And I'm going to give a shout out to a girl named Heather Campbell, who I've talked to recently about this. And we've talked a lot about the power of utilizing your talents not for pay. And there's so much in that. You say yes or no. You give what you can give. You're giving your talent. You have a lot of control in that. And so that's what I was doing. I was nominated for the MSOI program. Quite frankly, I did not even want to accept the nomination. I didn't know anything about it. I accepted the nomination, and in 2016, I made it to the base level. So I was at my base, and I realized, you know what, I could take this award and really leverage it on things that I was trying to work on. And as a parent of a child with special needs, I knew I was trying to make headway in that arena. Like, I was trying to make a better environment for my son. And so that's what I did all of 2016. And I was working with EF&P nationally on my base with family advocacy, just really trying to make headway in that area. I was nominated again in 2017. Again, did not want to accept the nomination. And somebody was like, you needed to do it. And so I did. And when you say shock and surprise, I received Little Rock again. And then to my surprise, I got nominated into the top 18 at the time, made branch winner, and then ultimately was awarded the overall. And it was such a life-changing experience. And I say that because I was in a room filled with people who were like just crushing it in there. Just pouring out their hearts into this community. They want to make it better. They want to see it better. They want to make change happen. And I got to be around all of these people and see what they were doing. And so when I started my 2017 term with the MSOI program, I really thought the special need community was this was like my time. Like, now it's like you've got the platform, like really take it to the next level. And I started traveling that year with some senior spouses, and I had gone to some events listening to military spouses talk. And I was journaling kind of the stuff that I was hearing. And it was like this light bulb went off, because I was in high like traffic areas. So like San Antonio, there's a lot of stuff. And I had visited like places in the middle of nowhere. And, places like Altus Air Force Base in the middle of nowhere. You can't even throw a rock on it if you try to find it. And the same issues were stated from these spouses. Enlisted, officer, it didn't matter. They were struggling with the same things. And when it came down to it, they were struggling with their identity. Who am I? Who am I in this life, this military life? What do I want to do? Why do I want to do it? Like, all of that. And in that moment, I pivoted and I was like, I just went through this myself. Like, I was that spouse 2 years ago. I've done all this self-reflection. I've forced myself to like really think about it and to sit there and say, you wasted 8 years. Like, I had to accept that as myself, in order to move forward. And so I quickly shifted, spent the rest of the year listening, journaling, taking content. And then at the end of the year, I wanted to give back to the Military Spouse of the Year community. And so I had developed the Discovering Your Spark workbook. And it was this this 40-page workbook with just all of these self-reflection questions. It directed you through these questions for you to kind of figure out the why, the who, the what, the values, what's stopping you, what goals you have, just the whole thing. And initially, I really just thought it was my gift. I mean, I actually gave it in my parting speech. And I said, this is my gift to you guys. Like, I just wanted to give this. And I had no idea that that was going to spark a movement in the community of military spouses that were just like going to own it. Like, they were just like, and own it. Even the ones who were the movers and shakers in that room who were already working, they were working, and some of them were working harder than they needed to. They were hitting walls. There were things that they were sacrificing themselves to do. And since 2018, when I gave it to them, to now, I've had the ability to share Discovering Your Spark and Continuing Your Journey, which is a subset, because it was like, okay, now you discovered what to do, but now what are you going to do? Like, what are you going to do with it? And so I built the Continuing Your Journey platform as a way of like having accountability and having the tools and resources to say, okay, now what's next? And we've reached over 10,000 spouses. It's been incredible. And hearing the stories and hearing, I get emails all the time from spouses who went through one of the workshops or worked through it themselves, and they reach out and they were like, this is what I'm doing now. And it's like the best feeling in the world, because I just got to be a part of their story, a little part. And that's where I say I'm the connector. The book, there's nothing in these workbooks that is life, altering, that no one's ever heard of before. Like, it's everything we've heard, but we don't ask ourselves.
Yeah.
And especially God, I'm a mom of an 11 and 9-year-old. And whenever they were 4 and 5 or 4 and 6, if you would have asked me, like, what do you enjoy doing? I would have laughed at you and been like, what do you mean? I don't have time to enjoy anything. Like, these kids take everything from, but when you work through and you get to see that, you're like, man, do you know what I got to do? Do you know how many people don't get to have these moments with their kids? Do you know how many kids are what, quote, latchkey? They're in after school programs. And when you change your mindset and you say, man, military life gave me the ability to be with my kids. Military life allowed me to be present at all their firsts, to see all of these. Military life is, given me the opportunity to like explore and see places that I would have never seen. And you start to realize that when you go back home. And when I say home, like wherever you grew up, and you go back home and you see people who never left, and they're reminiscing about high school and what we used to do. And then you go back and you're like, wow, like, look at what I've been able to do. Like, look at what this life gave me. And that's incredible.
I love it because so many people never take that time because it can feel a little bit overwhelming. Like, I don't know what I want. I have, moved every 2 years. I've tried to reinvent myself. I don't know what it is, who I really am anymore. No one really knows me. But really just taking that time to say, okay, let me sit down. Let me begin to reflect on what my values are, what I really enjoy doing, and what I want my life to look and feel like, and how can I take those concepts and apply it to where I am today. So even if I can't do all of the things that I want to do right now, what can I do and what is possible, and how can I grow where I am today? And that perspective shift, that mindset shift, and how we begin to structure our day, that's what ultimately leads us to finding fulfillment as a military spouse. It's not any of those
Mhm.
one things that if only I had this, then I would be happy. Then my life would be full. And it's really moving our lives and these small things, the way that we spend our hours is how we spend our life. And when we can figure that out, we find so much more fulfillment. And as you've demonstrated, we're
Yep.
able to in turn help others. And that real fulfillment comes when we are able to not only help ourselves, but we're able to help others.
1,000%. Could not have said it better.
So when you started hearing these stories and you started hearing this theme come up again, what did you start to do to say, what can I do about this? How can I help? And how did you begin to come up with this process that you wanted to share?
So I really went back to my own journal because it was almost like the things that I was hearing from military spouses, it was a validating moment to travel around and get to speak with military spouses and hear what they had to say, and it validated the things that I had already experienced, and it validated the part of my reflection journey saying I'm not the only one. I wasn't the only one that felt this way. I'm not the only one that got in a resentment cycle. I'm not the only one that was mad at the Air Force or mad at the military or whatever. Like, so it was a very validating moment. And then I said, you know what? And this is when I would say, I mean, we live in a very social media heavy era. And just 5, 6 years ago when this was built, we still were, and I feel like we were on that cusp of really embarking where just everything was kind of put out. Like you would see people just like post the meal that they ate. Like it was everything was shared. And I just remember thinking to myself, I'm like, what I'm seeing is like the highlight reel. I'm seeing all the good stuff, but I know that that's not like I know that's not possible. It cannot be that good all the time, you know? And so I just kind of told myself like what if I just was vulnerable with this community? What if I just as someone at the time who had a platform, and that's what the MSOI program did. It gave a platform. It's not going to just give you something on a plate and say, here it is. Like, I mean, I had to work really hard, but I finally had like that megaphone to kind of share what I was doing. And I figured, you know what? Right now, I have this audience that will listen. So instead of going up there telling them everything they need to do, what if I am transparent and tell them the truth? What if I just say how messy life is and how I don't have it together and how my kid I drive 26 miles to get a sweet tea so my kids will sleep in the car to the nearest Chick-fil-A. Like so
Mm-hmm.
just be real
Mm-hmm.
and say like I lose it and my life is a dumpster fire sometimes and then it's not. And if I could be transparent, I felt like I could help someone else validate what they were going through and understand that they could change it.
Mm.
They did not have to be stuck where they were. And that's really what it came down to is just opening up, sharing the good, the bad, the ugly. And I mean, if anyone's ever been to one of my workshops, they know I am as transparent as can be. And it's like, why not?
Mm-hmm.
Why not be transparent? Because in transparency, a lot more people are going to say, okay, now I can really say, if she did it, I can do it. Like, if that family made it through, we can make it through, kind of thing. And not just seeing the wins.
Yeah, that's so important because it takes it away from that is someone who is not like me to I could see that this is possible for me. And
Mm-hmm.
this can be real and I don't have to have everything figured out in order to have the life that really does light me up. So what would you say to the military spouse who is like, I really want to find myself. I want to feel like I have a sense of purpose, but I'm so focused on my external circumstances and everything that seems to be holding me back. What would you say to her?
So I think it's really important, like pen to paper is extremely important. Okay. And I say that because most people are visual. Like 78% of people are visual. Like we think about all the things we have going on, but it's not until we actually like put pen to paper. In my workshop, one of the things I have people do is I have them write down everything they do in a day. Everything. Like I wake up, I'm, fixing breakfast for people, like all the way to the end of the day, you take your shower and you get in bed. And I have people do that. And the reason I do it is so they can actually see how they're spending their time. Because you'll ask a lot of people simple questions like, oh, you seem busy. And you're like, oh, I'm like so busy. I'm so overexhausted. And you look at it and you're like, but what am I actually doing in that time? Like, what am I doing? Who am I doing it for? And so, like, that's an exercise. So, when I say pen to paper, it's being vulnerable with yourself to sit down and be honest, write it down, and ask yourself the hard questions. Like, I have the workbook, it's great. I have a template, a PDF. I will send it out to people, anybody. I'll post it online for people to use it as prompts. You can go online and Google, like, journal prompt questions for, discovering your why. You could pretty much go on any platform and do that, and it'll give you some prompts. But what I have found is, like, we start there with like your time, and then we move on in my workshop, and I say, okay, what are you responsible for and what are you committed to? And most people, whenever we get to that part, they're like, what's the difference? And I always say, okay, I'm going to give the best example I can. You're responsible for getting your kid to school. That's what you're responsible for doing. They have to be in school. It's a requirement. You are not responsible to be room mom, to be cupcake mom, to be the one in the classroom volunteering on library days. Like, those are commitments you're making on top of the responsibility of being a parent. Now, if that is where your why lies, great. If that does not align with your why and we're doing that, what do you think is going to happen? We're going to start developing resentment. We're going to not have the patience. We're going to be short on things because we're pouring ourselves into stuff that we're not getting fed back. We're not feeling ourselves, but we're just pouring out. So it's doing these exercises, your time management, your boundary exercises, um, you know, uh, goal exercises, looking at the life wheel and looking at the categories of your life. Because if I were to just go to anybody and be like, what's a goal you have? One, they would either be like, I have no idea because I have so much going on in my head right now that I can't even think of one isolated one. Or you're going to have the person who's like, well, I've got a goal here for work, and I have a goal at home, and I have a goal for the house, and I have a goal with the kids and a vacation. And they've got like so many. And you're like, whoa, now that's too many. So trying to achieve those is now going to be a problem. So it's just getting to pen and paper and working through all of these just reflection questions. And then the first thing though should be like, what makes you happy? What brings you joy?
Mm-hmm.
If that's not part of your life, that's problem number one.
Mm-hmm.
If
Absolutely.
everything else is above that, that's the first issue we need to get through. Because guess what? If you could be doing all of your goals and like, I want this job and I want this and I want that, and you could be achieving all of those, but if you are not happy, that's not going to make you happy. It's going to give you a temporary high.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to get that degree and you're going to be excited the moment it gets in your hand, and you're going to go to sleep, and the next day you're going to wake up and life is the same.
Mm-hmm.
And there's no joy and there's no happiness and there's no why and there's no purpose. And so you've got to get that first, and then everything else falls into place.
Yeah, I mean, and that's really the foundation of where we can begin, is to begin to understand what it is that brings us joy and what really lights us up, and how we can live out of that, and how we can tap into our talents and our strengths and our gifts and all the things that allow us to serve in the way that we want to serve while still feeling filled up, because the other route leads to burnout and leads to just more frustration and overwhelm, and is not going to lead us to the life that we actually want to live.
Yep. 100%. 100%.
So the USO has now licensed your workshops. So tell everybody how they can access the Discovering Your Spark brand and how people can connect with you.
So the easiest way to connect is the website. So DiscoveringYourSpark.com. You can connect with me there. I'm the only person that answered. I don't have an assistant or anybody, so I'm the only person that answers. Following the USO Military Spouse Facebook page is a great place for you to see every time there's a workshop, how to register. So I would highly encourage, if you're not a part of that, to join that, not just for my workshop, but everything else that the USO is doing for military spouses. And a lot of people aren't aware of those programs, and they're free, so it's a great opportunity. You can follow Discovering Your Spark on all social channels. You can do it on Facebook and Instagram. And I also answer all of those. So that's the easiest way. Every month there's a free workshop. So we cover a different topic every month. We're going to introduce some new things this year, which is going to be really great. I think we're going to focus on some different ways to discover, like, in entrepreneurship, or like moving towards that. So that's going to be exciting. But those are the easiest ways to reach out to me. And I've done the best that I can to make sure all of these resources are provided at no charge for military spouses through partnerships. And so it's been great having the support of the USO, Armed Forces Insurance, the InspireUp Foundation. We've been able to really provide all of this at no cost to really help military spouses.
Oh my goodness, you guys. I have been thinking a lot about how to wrap up this series. How do I tie a bow on all of this after 10 weeks of looking at super practical things we can do to begin to transform our lives from the inside out? And so what I think we're going to do is next week, we're going to do that together. And it's just next week's episode is going to be a conversation between you and me, and we're going to talk about what we've learned together this summer. I will share a little personal update on my own PCS journey over the last few months, and then we'll talk about what's next and where we go from here. In the meantime, if you're interested in working with me, make sure you get on the coaching waitlist. Click the link in the show notes or just go to the website. I will be opening up a limited number of coaching spots soon, and I don't want you to miss out. So if that is something that you are even remotely considering, take action now. It costs you absolutely nothing to get more information, and it might be the exact thing you need to take action and to step into the next season of growth and transformation for yourself, because you are more than a milspouse, and it's time to unlock your potential. Until next time, may you live filled, fueled, and full of joy. Hey, amazing Milspouse. Before you go, I want you to know that I love hearing from you. The More Than a Milspouse community exists to help you thrive as a military spouse. Figure out what lights your heart on fire and empower you to live with purpose and impact. You can have an incredible impact simply by heading over to iTunes to subscribe and leave a review. But your impact doesn't stop there. You can empower those around you simply by sharing an episode with a friend or neighbor, someone who needs a little encouragement in this military life. And if this episode was meaningful to you, spread the love by taking a screenshot of this episode and tagging me on Instagram so we can continue to reach more people, change more lives, and shift the way that military spouses look at life. Because we are better together. Together, we can change the world. Let's do it.